A massive debate has been growing quite rapidly in boxing over the duration of the past, let's call it 16 months. And that question is a question which is this: should mega fights just go right into happening as opposed to having tune-up or build-up fights? What do I mean by that? We go back to December 22nd, 2023, Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, same exact card. Both guys were lined up to fight on March 9th, 2024. And at that point in time, we had both guys going back-to-back fighting. Deontay Wilder had one of the most abysmal performances that we've seen in boxing when he fought Joseph Parker. He loses that opportunity. Now Anthony Joshua goes out and gets the job done, but now that fight no longer makes any sense. So that fight's now off the table. We fast forward to now what happened just about 4 weeks ago. And in that situation, we go to Times Square. Devin Haney, although he looked abysmal in his performance, still got the job done and won the fight. And then Ryan Garcia comes up and, well, craps the bed, let's be honest, against Raleigh Romero. And at that point in time, that fight now is off the table. Let's fast forward now to what happened Saturday night. Jamal Charlo and Caleb Plant were supposed to fight each other in a mega fight. Charlo goes up first. He takes care of business against Thomas LaManna. And then Caleb Plant comes out. Obvious favorite. Everybody knows it's going to be a quick walkthrough. Should be a quick KO. Get him out of there. And now Caleb Plant is sitting in the position where he's now up for upset of the year. Interesting situation to be placed in. And it appears now that while this fight is still possible to be made, it no longer has the hype it once had. It no longer has the promise, the excitement behind it that it once did have, as though, 48 hours ago. So I asked the question again: should we just go right into these fights, or are the tune-up fights right? I'm going to give both sides of the story, then I'm going to give my thoughts on this. One side of the story is this: at the end of the day, would we have wanted to see the Caleb Plant that showed up on Saturday night against Jamal Charlo? That's an important question to ask, because Caleb Plant did not look good at all. Would that fight have even been good? I don't know. Same thing with the other fights involved. Would the Ryan Garcia that we saw in that fight against Raleigh Romero and the Devin Haney that we saw too ever have been a good fight? Probably not. Same thing with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua showed out that night against Otto Wallin. Deontay Wilder was abysmal. What would have happened to Deontay Wilder in that ring if they would have fought that night? I don't know. So, on one side of the story, I think the tune-up fights could be critical, and it eliminates the potential for a bad, massive fight. Let's go to the other side of the story, though. These are big fights. Boxers are in boxing to make big money. And I understand that Charlo was the reason this fight did not happen right out the gate, because Charlo wanted a tune-up fight. And rightfully so, let's be honest. He was out for a long time. But my opinion is this: if you want to make the fight happen, go in there and make the fight happen. Let's stop doing this little build-up fight, put two guys in the same card back to back, and then hope it all works out. Boxing is one of the most unique sports in the world. And actually, combat sports as a whole is the only sports in the world where the entire trajectory of a fight can be flipped in a moment. 1 second is all it takes to have a knockout. 1 second, anything can change. Plans can get busted and changed in a moment. Only in combat sports can that occur. So you're playing with fire. You got quite the risk you got going on right at the moment if you're going to try to put yourself in a situation that says, you know what? Let's hope both these guys make it out. This is boxing. Anything can happen, and we just saw it happen on Saturday night once again. So if you really want these big grudge matches to be happening and boxing fights to get made, go right into them and make it happen. However, if you want the best fights to be made, then guess what? Doing the way we've been having it happen is fine. Because there's a difference between biggest and best fights. If you want the biggest fights to happen, go right into them and make them happen. That's the way to make them biggest. If you want to make them the best fight possible, then doing the tune-up route is probably okay for you. And I say this because, like I said, it eliminates what would have been likely horrible performances from guys. You could say that maybe they would have risen to the occasion if it was a bigger fight, but let's be honest, guys just did not look good in those fights. So if I were to make this statement, I'd say this: if you want the best fights to be made, keep doing this route, if necessary. If you need a tune-up fight for a situation like Charlo, where he's just out of the equation for a long time, let's go and just wait a little bit and make that tune-up fight happen. But if you want to make money and you want the biggest fights possible, then guess what? Book those fights right out the gate and stop waiting around. That's the end of the story. That's my opinion on it. I think it depends on what both aspects want in the situation. And at that point in time, you can make the affirmative decision on how you want to proceed.